Welcome back to Triple B Barbecue. Today we're going to be cooking this brined injected turkey that we've got spatchcocked here. This of course is when it's been finished, but we're going to show you all of the steps from beginning to end. This is my absolute favorite way to cook a turkey. You get it in a brine for 24 hours, take it out, spatchcock it, put it in the fridge overnight until the day you're ready to cook it. Then you season it up and throw it on the smoker. It only takes a few hours and it is just amazing. It's some of the best bites of barbecue you can get and always impresses. I cooked this on Christmas Day for my friends and family and everyone loved it. So of course, a few days before, you got to get your brine going. So we've got our brine mix here that we're mixing in water that has been boiling and we reduced the temperature. Pour in your brine mix. This is the Triple B Poultry Brine mix that will be coming to market in 2022. And you just stir that up until it's dissolved. Bring it back up to a boil. And then once it's boiled, you can go ahead and start to cool it down by putting some ice into the water, and I'll have the exact measurements and how much ice you need to put in here in the video description. But you want to cool the brine down as much as you can after it's been dissolved. So keep adding ice in the increments described below until all of the ice cubes have melted, and then you can put it into your briner bucket. So this is the briner bucket. That's what I use to brine my turkeys. It's a super handy device because it's got these channels in the side of the bucket and a retainer plate that you can push down in and lock in place so that it keeps the turkey completely submerged in your brine solution. So you see there I'm pouring in the brine, and then I'm going to add water until we get up to 2 gallons total solution. So that's the brine solution that we dissolved plus all of the additional cold water that I'm adding. So we want to start to cool this down. So all of the water we're adding here is cold water. You could put more ice if you want. You just need to do the measurements. The pounds of ice to gallons of water can be found online, and of course then you just dunk your turkey. Once you've got all of your brine mixed up, you submerge the turkey. On mine here I've got the briner bucket, so you put the retainer plate in, lock it into place. It's super handy. That'll make sure that your turkey is completely submerged throughout the duration of the brine, and that's what you want. Pop the lid on. You see I've got ice in my Yeti cooler here. Once we close that lid up, it's going to stay right where you want it. For about 24 hours is how long I left this bad boy in the brine. So you want to go at least 24 hours. You can go up to 48. I've even heard of people going longer than that, but I wouldn't recommend it. 24 to 48 hours is good. In my case, 24 hours has gone by, so it's time to pull my turkey out of the brine. You see how much ice we've retained in there, so nice cold temperature throughout. Go ahead and let everything drip off. You see I'm being very careful not to contaminate my kitchen with turkey water there. And once you're able, go ahead and grab the turkey and pull it out. We're going to pull it right into the sink. Once we're able to get it up and dripped off to a state where we can pull it out all the way, we want to get it into the sink. And you really want to give it a good rinsing, right? So you don't want to like soak it in water, but you want to rinse it off. So you get all of the herbs and spices that were in our brine, you're able to get off of the turkey. You'll see here that the turkey neck and the giblets are still in my turkey here, so I brined those as well. But you want to turn it around, get all over the skin of the turkey and just give it a good rinse. A lot of that brine has really soaked into the meat of the turkey, so you're going to have great penetration using a brine. Hands down, it's the best way to cook a turkey. To cook any poultry, matter of fact. And a lot of ham, a lot of pork is by brining it. But, you know, the turkey in this brine particularly just can't be beat. It's perfect for turkey. So once you've got it all rinsed off, then you can take it out and get it set up on your cutting board there and get ready to slice. You'll see I do have the giblets that I brined as well. I like to keep these to make gravy. Not a lot of people do that, but the neck, the heart, the kidneys, the liver, all makes great gravy, especially after it's been brined, so I'm putting those aside. Now it's time to spatchcock the turkey. I'll go ahead and trim off a lot of this extra skin you find up at the top of the turkey where the neck is. You know, that's not gonna be good. You just want to cut that off. Just trim it up. That's something that you'll find on just about every turkey you buy. Trim that extra skin off. And then we're gonna flip it around onto its stomach so that its back is facing up. Whenever I'm cooking poultry, I like to make an incision right along the backbone. And then I peel the skin away from the backbone. Because of course we're going to remove the backbone when we're spatchcocking. And I just like to be able to have that extra skin to pull around over the bird to make sure we've got skin covering all of the meat. So you'll see there I've peeled the skin back and I'm cutting out the backbone now. I'm using a knife here. You can certainly use some kitchen shears. Turkey's tough on kitchen shears. There's a lot of thick bones to get through there, so I find a serrated bread knife. This is my brisket slicer. I find it works really well. And the backbone, you see, is out now. The next step, of course, is to make sure we can spatchcock this bird. You have to at least make an incision in the breastbone here. In this case, lately, I've really liked removing the breastbone. So you'll see that's what I'm doing here. I'm just cutting along the side of the breastbone there, making incisions right up against the bone, down a little bit at a time to where I can separate the breastbone completely from the meat. I'm also taking the time and taking the liberty to cut out a lot of this junk that's on the inside of the rib cage. I actually pulled out the rib cage completely off of this bird and a lot of the other bones that are running down along the inside of the bird. There's a lot of stuff hanging off inside of here as well that you can just cut out. So you'll see here, that's what I'm doing. Now at this point I've almost got the breastbone out completely. So you just keep cutting slowly along the sides of it until you can get under the breastbone and there's some connective tissue, let's say, some thinner bone down there that you can just cut straight through. So once you get down there, you can cut right under it. You're in the meat at that point. Make sure you don't go down too far. You'll cut through the skin. You don't want to do that. You just cut it out, and there you are. You don't have a lot of meat that you lose when you do that. And what that does is it allows you to cut through the breast completely, and cutting against the grain, right from top to bottom as you're cutting the breast, which is really the best way to cut it. You don't want to cut along with the muscle fibers like most people do when they're carving a turkey. You actually want to cut it from top to bottom, across the grain. It's easier to eat. You get a much more tender piece of turkey that way. So you see now I've finished cutting out all the bones, all the gunk off the back side of the bones. You just want to give it a rub down with a paper towel. Make sure you get things clean. I'm going back in for a couple more bones here. But before too much longer, you could do this forever, but before too much longer, you get a clean bird here. Then you want to flip it back over. You want to dry the skin off. You want to dry it off as much as you can with paper towels to where it's as dry as possible. And you want to put that in the fridge overnight at least. At least 12 hours, put it in the fridge. That'll really dry the skin out, and it'll give you incredible results when you actually cook this thing. Dry the skin out completely. Anyone willing to conduct an honest appraisal of themselves will likely conclude that they are not what they could be. There are things we all do, which we ought to stop. And likewise, things we aren't doing that we should have been doing all along. As we find ourselves once more on the cusp of a new year, perhaps our minds have begun to take inventory of what changes we'd like to see in ourselves. That is, of course, the only entity which we really have the capability of changing and controlling. The force that mitigates between potential and reality, as it relates to the habits and behavior of individuals, appears to be the articulation of, and effort put forth in accomplishing goals. Though identification and articulation of goals can be complex, it seems to me that the most difficult part of the process is having sufficient willpower to do the work necessary to accomplish the goals that we desire. Setting a goal is simple enough, and achieving that goal is dependent upon the exertion of the necessary self-control and discipline to achieve it. However, the force required to exert the necessary self-control and discipline seems to be a finite resource and one that seems difficult to control or direct. Otherwise, it shouldn't be difficult to achieve any goal. I've often wondered how one could generate the willpower sufficient to accomplish goals. The great Swiss psychologist Carl Jung spoke of libido as it related to the realization of one's goals. His use of the word differed from Freud in that libido did not solely apply to sex, but rather, and I quote, "a desire or impulse which is unchecked by any kind of authority, moral or otherwise. Libido is appetite in its natural state. From the genetic point of view, it is bodily needs like hunger, thirst, sleep, and sex, and emotional states or affects which constitute the essence of libido." What's more interesting is that Jung believed that the libido generated by our psyche was distributed to the areas that our psyche needs it to go to most, not where we want it to go per se. He continues, quote, "For the libido does not incline to anything, otherwise it would be possible to turn it in any direction one chooses. But that is the case only with voluntary processes, and then only to a limited degree. The libido has, as it were, a natural penchant. It is like water, which must have a gradient to follow. As such, the libido is the appetite which gives sustenance to all of our efforts. It is, for lack of a better word, the mental energy to persevere in any given effort. Our psyche generates that libido by itself, and it goes where it is needed, not where we want it to go. If we set a goal that we lack libido for achieving, we will most likely fail. The appetite or the impulse to achieve that goal will not exist, and the psyche will tire of working towards it. And the finite resource that is energy, willpower, desire, etc. will be exhausted, and we won't reach our goals. Joseph Lee from the This Jungian Life podcast said it perfectly, and I quote, "I've kind of cut a deal with my unconscious. If you want me to act on any of these things, you have to generate enough libido to bring it to fruition. And I have to have a sense of tremendous trust that there's enough energy to carry it forward. And that's often how I will evaluate whether or not something is actionable in my psyche. Because it's so miserable to set things in motion and not have enough steam to carry them through. It's such a sense of unnecessary defeat." End quote. As such, it might be helpful to 1. Understand where the libido being generated by my psyche is being channeled currently. 2. Resolve external issues that are consuming the libido that my psyche is generating, which are unconscious. For example, anything causing unnecessary stress, not enough sleep, too much social media, too much work, tumultuous relationships, or other interpersonal problems, etc. 3. Actively work at building gradients in the psyche to channel the libido in the direction where you would consciously like it to go. I do this primarily by writing about and speaking about my goals, dreams, ambitions, etc., and more importantly, why I want to achieve them. Perhaps in so doing, we can bridge the disconnect between what we say we want to be and what we actually are. There does not appear to be any limit to the upward direction we can take our lives. There is no limit to the good we are capable of ushering into existence. All right, so now it's time to season. We've had this in the fridge all night. The skin is dried out and it's ready to get seasoned. So you want to turn it around so that you're seasoning the meat side first. Of course, we've deboned all of this. We've trimmed off a lot of the gunk. And we're using here our Triple B Poultry seasoning. Can't be beat on poultry. Really a fantastic rub for chicken, for turkey. It's really, honestly, one of the best rubs out there. And you'll be blown away at the flavor you get through this poultry rub. It's got a lot of onion, garlic, and it's got some citrus notes to it that you'll notice. Here now, I've turned the bird back over and I'm injecting it. All I'm using here to inject this bird is just some butter. Some high quality, let's say Irish butter. It doesn't have to be, but that's what I used here. Just some high quality butter. Just inject it straight into the breast. 4 or 5 times in the breast, and whatever's left, you can inject in the thighs and the drumstick. Those don't necessarily need injection, but you won't be mad about it. It's delicious. And once you get the bird injected, kind of rub the rest of the butter all over it, and we're good to season it again on top here. So you want a good coating, right? You don't want to go super heavy on poultry in general, but you want to coat the whole thing. So just take your time here and make sure you get every inch of this bird coated with some rub, some of this poultry rub from Triple B Barbecue. Again, it's a fantastic rub. Got a little bit of paprika, which you'll be able to tell once it's cooked. It'll give a kind of a nice reddish undertone. Here it looks orange, yellow. That's because a lot of the garlic and onion that's in this rub. And again, there's also some orange and lime in here that you'll be able to detect. There's kind of some undertones that give it a nice brightness, which is really nice. But overall, a really great savory flavor with this rub. And it pairs really, really well with turkey. We've used it, of course, with chicken to great effect, but with your Thanksgiving turkey, it just can't be beat. Give it a nice, healthy coating all around. And after that, we'll be really ready to get this bad boy into the cooker. Don't forget the wings. We've got those tucked back behind the head, right? Kind of like he's out sunbathing, which he is. But you want to tuck those wingtips back so they don't burn. Yeah, it's looking good at this point. Cover every last inch. And of course, when you're moving this thing around, you'll expose some crevices, right? Here it is, all seasoned up. You see it's got rub all over it, so it's ready to go in the smoker. And there's no delicate way to do this, right? You'll expose some crevices and stuff when you're moving this thing around. The best thing to do is just get your hands under there as much as you can. Spread your fingers out, get as much surface area on your hands as you can, and lay that bad boy down on the grates. You'll see some patches here as a result where you've kind of exposed some new folds, and you just want to make sure you touch this up. Once it's in its final position on the smoker, you just go back one more time, touch it up, make sure everything's covered up, and then you can tuck this bad boy in for a nice smoke nap. Doesn't take long. Takes a couple hours to cook a turkey. I let it go for about an hour before I come back and check on it and put in some temperature probes, as you'll see here in just a second. We put some temperature probes in. I usually just do 2, one in the breast and then one in the thigh. You just want to monitor the temperature. Barbecue's done when it's done, which makes it difficult to cook when you got guests coming over, as any barbecuer knows. But it's done when it's done. You just do what you can, and when it's done, it's done. And in this case, when it reaches 165 in the breast, you'll typically be up around 175, 180 in the thigh, which is just perfect. The thigh is going to cook a little quicker than the breast. You don't want to take that over 165, so I just pull it right when it's 165. You slice it up, and that's what you've got. It's a great, great meal. You can't beat it for Thanksgiving. You can't beat it for Christmas. You can't beat it for New Year's. You really can't beat it all year. I often wonder this time of year why I don't cook turkey more often. And so I'm gonna take that as a resolution into 2022. Hope you all enjoyed this cook. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.